I'm Dr. Knutson, and I teach CJ 301. Within that course, what we aim to do is have individuals understand different aspects of intercultural communication. And so beyond just thinking about intercultural communication as differences between national cultures, which is the way a lot of people think about it. So, oh, I need to learn how to communicate with someone, say in China, where do I do business with someone in China someday, or with people from different parts of the world. And so while that is a component of the class, we spend a lot of time talking about different cultural distinctions, like gender as a cultural distinction and sexual identity as a cultural distinction, and talk about how we can find good ways to communicate with different individuals and effective ways to communicate with individuals who have vastly different identities than we do. Covert power, however, are the power structures that we don't see. They're the power structures that exist and constrain our choices, but we don't see them. They're not there to us, and so we don't notice that these things are exerting power over us. So ideally, when students are done with CJ 301, what they'd understand is that there are many times in life where we find ourselves unable to have successful interactions with other people because of our different cultural backgrounds. So it's because we see the world in a different way. We were raised to believe different things, we value different things, and that doesn't mean we can't have communication. That doesn't mean we can't build effective relationships with people. We can still have functioning and effective relationships. We just have to know how to manage those interactions with communication. So we will spend some time talking about like political issues, right? Like Republicans and Democrats don't seem to be able to have conversations with one another. And it's because they have vastly different worldviews. Their cultures and the way that they look at the world are incredibly different. And so not that we can solve problems in politics, but we can talk about what other topics could we discuss, how could we find different ways to interact when we find ourselves in that same situation where I ideologically disagree with this person, but we have to work together to get a job done. So I want them to walk away having opened their mind a little bit to see that even if you completely disagree with what someone says, if they're able to present their argument or talk about why they believe what they believe in a logical way, that there's probably a foundation to what they believe, and that accepting that belief, that it exists, even if you can't accept that it works for you, can enable you to communicate a little bit better than just believing there's something inherently wrong with that other individual because they don't agree with you. I think it's a very fun class. Right? And so it gives people the opportunity to come in and speak your mind. It also teaches people to be really respectful, because you learn really early on that there are people in your classroom that have vastly different opinions than you. And so by focusing more on discussion, it does enable people to have some of those conversations within the class where they say, I have to watch what I say, or I have to be cautious of how I frame my view on this because I could be offending other people. Right? Like I let people say what was confusing from the text, and I'll elaborate on the confusing parts. But instead of me trying to decide that ahead of time, it's a lot more fun for students, I think, to come in and be able to say, not only was this confusing, but I also really liked this idea and I want to talk about it more, and what are some other examples of where it happens in our world.